Good evening and welcome to VI Voices. I'm Emile Henderson III along with Clint Ferris, Boyd McFarland, and Yoki Hanley. We continue our election coverage tonight as we have with us our Senate President of the 3rd Legislature of the Virgin Islands, Senator Shawn-Michael Malone. And as you know, he is seeking the office of Delegate to Congress. And so he's here tonight. I'm going to talk to him a little bit more about that. But before we go there, one quick hot topic before we do that. Clint wants to talk about garbage in St. Croix and issues we have going on. So let us know, what's the issue?
You caught me off guard, but I'm gonna. One of the things that
You're never caught off guard.
Okay. One of the things I've realized, I've been walking the island regularly of late, and if you walk around, the tires are strewn all about the bushes. People are dumping garbage bags, washing machines, sofas, all throughout our beautiful island. And we need to put a stop to it. First, we need to practice some restraint and say, okay, no, this is our island. If we're going to talk about VI nice, St. Croix nice, St. Thomas nice, we need to start to take care of our own. Also, we need better public policy to dissuade people from dumping, like tires. People take the tires from the tire shop and then dump them in the bush because they don't want to pay that $5. So we need to find a better way to manage that policy so people don't have to feel, okay, I'm going to save $5 and I'm going to dump it in the bush. It's going to cost us more money over time. So we need to have a better policy on that. That's my take on that one.
And that was your take on it.
And I hope VI Voices would join me maybe a month or two down the road and we plan a clean up our island campaign and we go out, get trash bags with cool t-shirts on and start to clean up our island.
But
that would
be
something that we do.
Enforcement officers, them for waste management, that's supposed to be.
They have the enforcement, they have the police, they have that. Everybody start with us. We need to start to each one teach one.
Starts with us,
I see what he's saying, but he's talking about public policy or something or the other. The policy is already there. The thing is implementation.
It's not being
and being enforced.
That's the thing, or being enforced, correct. What's the issue? Why are people dumping stuff? Why are people trying with garbage? In my opinion, because we lack national pride or any kind of love for anything. If you don't know something, how you gonna love it?
Thank you.
So what's the problem? The problem is we go to the people, we go to the source. We develop the people, we develop the inside.
And that's what I'm talking about.
There's not a waste management authority.
There's a waste management authority.
But the same people I'm referring to working for the waste.
But look at this. You have one dump site for all of Frederickstead. Whereas you didn't have that before. You had several different dump sites for Frederickstead.
The garbage, but they don't drive through your neighborhood.
No, but my thing is about. But my thing is about.
Yes,
but you know
where I live. Yes, you do.
You mean, like for instance, like green trash. You can't dump it at the dump sites legally. You have to take it to Angola. To me, you should be able to let them dump it there, and then we move it. Because if we allow them to dump it every place else, we're having a problem, and we're seeing it right now. So allow them to dump it at the central dump trash, and the government move them. If we don't have a better policy in place, or we lack enforcement.
Or we can have a really good waste management plan where you don't have to leave your house, and that the garbage stuff will come through your neighborhoods, and they will take it for you. They come to mine on Tuesdays and Fridays.
It depends on the neighborhood.
And then where we actually have a system, values of recycling,
correct,
reusing, all of that is part of the plan, and I think that we need to start to advance that plan.
What's the economic feasibility of actually recycling? Because it's my understanding, because I used to sit on the community advisory council for waste management when it first came about, and the thing that was taught was that it was too expensive. We couldn't do a lot of the recycling because we didn't generate enough trash. So in order to participate in the recycling, that means we would have to be taking in trash to recycle to make it economically feasible for us to go into these recycling programs.
But what's the cost of us not recycling? I could tell you it is staggering.
6 or 1/2% of the other.
Well, what we know we won't be doing this year is recycling somebody to go to Washington, because we have our delegate is not running again. She's running for governor, and whoever wins will be brand new to Washington, D.C. And so we have with us tonight Senator Shawn-Michael Malone, who is running for the delegate to Congress. He has 2 other individuals running against him in the Democratic Party nomination, and we'll see what happens come August 2nd. Now, I think there's like one other person running that's not a Democrat, so I presume that whoever wins in the primary will be our next delegate. So there'll not be much to do. But when we get back, we will have Senator Malone with us to talk about what he's doing. Back in a moment. Welcome back to VI Voices. We have with us Senate President Shawn-Michael Malone. Welcome to VI Voices.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is your first time on the show, correct?
Yes, first time.
All right. And so, I think hopefully you've seen the show before and you know how we're going to proceed, and you'll be ready to answer some tough questions from these people.
Yes, I know.
Especially these two.
Aaron,
So,
Why he don't do that?
talk. I mean, for
It's
those,
good, it's
for
good.
those who may not know who you are, let the people know a little bit who you are, and most importantly, you've been in the Senate for a really long time. Why would you want to now switch over to run for delegate?
Okay, my name is Shawn-Michael Malone. I'm a St. Thomas and Dunn District Senator. I'm a 7th and 9th generation Virgin Islander. 9 at St. Croix, 7 at St. Thomas. And have been in public service all my life. I come from a family of public servants. And just getting right to your question, the reason why I won't say switching over, but continuing my service as a legislator on the federal level. Most states promote their state legislators to Congress because they're very familiar with the lay of the land of their state, in this case our territory, and it prepares you, as the National Conference of State Legislators would say, many of our slogans, of which I'm an executive committee member of, that the state legislature is the training ground for members of Congress. And it gives me the ability to effectively represent the people of the territory in areas that, as a senator, you saw that we were stagnated on from a federal perspective.
Name one of those
So,
areas.
duty free. Let's talk about mail to the Virgin Islands, right?
Right.
SSI, a number of things that were treated as second-class citizens.
So moving into that, the position and status. Talk to us about it.
As an intern on the Political Status Commission, as a college student in my junior year of college, I wrote my thesis to graduate from Hampton University on the political status options available to the Virgin Islands. Obviously, the Virgin Islands people want to remain as a part of the United States. But this is the challenge we have. The United Nations, most people, in most so-called referendums anyhow, that's another discussion. But according to the United Nations, you only have 3 options that we identified or recognized as official statuses. That is independence, free association, or incorporated into the sovereign country, incorporation, or statehood.
Don't forget that one.
Of course, we had the referendums. People went to this middle ground, think of compact of federal relations, and I think on status quo, which is unincorporated territory, with enhanced benefits through negotiations with the federal government based on what agreement will be found. For example, Puerto Rico likes to call themselves a Commonwealth, but they're just unincorporated territory. It's just a name. What they have is a constitution that they frame around what they like to describe as a Commonwealth. For there is a Commonwealth of Massachusetts, there's a Commonwealth of Virginia, and I think another 3 states, Kentucky, are Commonwealths. So it's just a name. So when they tell me that, went out to the political Senate president and said, look, you guys are just an unincorporated territory, just like U.S. Virgin Islands and Guam, who just became a quote-unquote Commonwealth, but they're still unincorporated. There are no incorporated or free, only Micronesia is freely associated right now. And of all the U.S. possessions, they're the only ones recognized by the United Nations as legitimate, having legitimate status.
So you think the populace is educated enough to make a decent vote on it?
No, they're not. In fact, we had 2 tries at this. I served in the first commission when we had the referendum, and the turnout was poor.
Right, of course.
We tried our best to break it down, but there was too many options for people to understand. It was just ridiculous. And the time that was available wasn't adequate. You need to spend a good 5 years, literally. I don't think you should rush it, but really spend the time getting people to understand. And what I've recommended since I've been around the Senate now a lot and understanding the population a lot more, I think the best way to tell people about the status is you are citizens by statute, not by constitution. Just like we were purchased by the United States from Denmark. When my great-grandmother was pregnant with my grandmother, she got her a week after the transfer, had no say in what we became in 1917. And the same thing can happen to us. You look at the way the world financial markets are operating and the deficit and the sequestration, all that stuff is going on in DC. I'm not saying that it will happen to the Virgin Islands, but we should not be reactionary like we've always been with everything else, and be proactive and say, look, in the event some crazy Republican or some U.S. congressman decide, look, we can't afford these Virgin Islands anymore. Let's just, and they can do that. A member of Congress can get up on the floor and propose a bill to strip the territory of its status and sell us to somewhere else. It'll be a big fight. That's what I was pushing in here for the Constitution for the Virgin Islands. it doesn't necessarily change the status. It doesn't change the status, but what it does, it sends a message to the U.S. government, Interior in particular, that we've matured politically, and that it'll be a lot more difficult for them to just like unilaterally say, okay, you could just go to China who wants the highest bidder. We don't want to find ourselves in that situation again. And I believe, and all you could agree with me, if you're doomed to not understand your history, you don't repeat it.
Nevertheless, we celebrate Transfer Day annually.
Yes, and I think the Danes have a prominent role in that than the American government, which I said to my remarks the other day.
We go along with it.
You know, yeah, you know it.
You made a mention earlier about the mail system. And I don't think people really truly understand the dire situation that we are in now currently with Puerto Rico as it is to the Virgin Islands.
Yes.
Knowing that Puerto Rico is day by day taking over our mail system and that we have less and less control over our mail, how do you see yourself as delegate reversing that to where we did have control of our mail?
Excellent question. And this is where my experience comes in as a her for the territory. I have an excellent relationship with the Senate President of Puerto Rico, Batia. And you know, we had that meeting of the 9th, and they came to St. Thomas, and the senators from the Virgin Islands met with them, and we began talking about doing more things together, understanding the needs of both territories, so that things that they do don't impact us and vice versa, which has been happening. Like the rum wars, for example. But what you find in Puerto Rico, excuse me, I have to grab the chair, is there's a union that has to have a minimum of 800 employees to retain the employment status in Puerto Rico for the mail system, for the U.S. postal system. To do that, guess how they justify it? Handling the Virgin Islands mail. So they can have jobs in Puerto Rico. That's really at the essence of this whole thing with the mail in Puerto Rico. Them maintaining this level of employment for their people. Of course, you know, they're a bad economy in Puerto Rico, and so they don't want to jeopardize losing any more jobs. As a delegate, I'm saying to Batia, or his resident commissioner who sits there right now, we need more attention paid. If you don't want to get into a fight with them or lose jobs in Puerto Rico, want to be nice to them and work with them, then you need to dedicate your place strictly to Virgin Islands mail. They can't be doing both. Right?
So do you know that right now what Puerto Rico is actually doing is that jobs that are open in the territory, they're sending Puerto Ricans over here to fill those jobs?
And I will protest that heavily.
It's happening.
It's happening. I mean, I'm not telling you this is not a hypothetical.
Yeah.
It is happening. It has been happening. I'm a former postal employee.
Right.
Worked there for 7 years, been gone for 10. And from the time I left in 2003, it has progressively gotten worse. I mean, even to simple sweeping the floor. You know, they're saying that there's nobody in the territory qualified for it. So they are bringing people, and this is what happens. They come from Puerto Rico, okay, because they can't get into Puerto Rico at the entry level, but they can get in the territory. You have to pass the 3 months probation. After you get through the probation, guess where they're going? Back into Puerto Rico. And the position over here is closed, but it cannot be filled because it already has been filled.
I know, as a good lawyer, you know, it's difficult to pass a bill saying Virgin Islands preference because, you know, it's a U.S. job and you can't prefer, you know. So a person from Kentucky can apply for the job, from New York, whatever. But that's where leadership comes in. And the relationships, right? And so, look, we understand that we can't legally bar Puerto Ricans from applying for a job in the Virgin Islands, but respect us. You won't let it happen to us in Puerto Rico. But you got to know the people. You have to get to meet the people.
But I think if it's not mistaken, even within the code, if I'm not mistaken, that you know that all jobs here must be filled by locals before you bring in anybody, regardless of the job.
I got checked. I don't think that's legal.
Yeah, under the duties, especially of the Commissioner of Labor. You know, if you have positions here, they must be filled by qualified Virgin Islanders. Excuse me, before you go and...
Which commissioner? Our local?
Yeah,
commissioner?
our local. You know, but
I don't think he had jurisdiction over the federal...
No, but I think more for the tax benefit program. But not for any other job.
I mean, like I said, because when I used to work there, excuse me, we had where locals were getting the jobs. You understand? And yes, you had the Puerto Ricans coming, but the locals were getting the jobs because the power was held in the territory.
Yes, Senator Malone. Yes, Cliff. Clint. Okay, no problem.
That's his brother.
Really? Okay. All right.
Okay, you said you have relationships are going to be important in how you get the job done. So is it safe to say that you have been having a long-standing relationship with Batia in Puerto Rico?
The answer is no. We got to be friends in August of 2013 at the national conference in Atlanta.
Okay.
And he had just become Senate President too, so he was new in his term. And as president, we had that opportunity to meet.
and it was further developed when we went to a Spanish Hispanic caucus in Orlando, and our people helped him get elected to become the chair of the NCSL Hispanic caucus, which is great, which provided him with some prominence in the 47,000 member NCSL organization. And then that also then precipitated him coming here. He's going to be here in St. Croix in October for VIP friendship activities.
Okay, that's wonderful. I'm looking at your brochure.
Yes.
You're talking about the Better Virgin Islands, you're talking about economic development and equally America.
Yes.
Now, Better Virgin Islands. You have a record because you're a former senator. Do you believe you have created a better Virgin Islands than when you came into the legislature, knowing full well that you mentioned the rum wars, you voted for the Diageo deal.
Yes.
You voted for the 8% cut.
Yes.
You voted for the gross receipt hike. You voted
Not
for
the second one.
You
The first one.
Yeah,
There were two.
But you voted for the second one. You voted for
the first
the
one.
you voted for the second Hovensa agreement.
Yes.
All of those things that you voted for. So, are we any better for all of those things that you just voted in the affirmative for?
That's a good question, and this is what is very challenging. This is one of those times we're talking about a very difficult economic environment, right? So what I look at that as, Clint, as making the decisions that keep things together as opposed to letting them fall apart more. So depending on how you look at it, it could be because people would disagree with supporting the agreement, voting for Diageo. The intent, let's talk about the Diageo agreement for example. I like this one a lot because it just was poorly communicated, and the government did a poor job, selling the idea to the community because of this rush to do because of Puerto Rico, and they didn't want to know what we're doing, so we wanted anyway. What I voted for in Diageo, and I had the best consult. I even had Judge Hodge, even Matt said, this is a good deal except for the 60, the automatic 30. So every agreement isn't perfect. But what I was looking at, Clint, was the extra money that we did get. We did get a huge, like 130 to 140 million more in the cover over. This is what went wrong with Diageo. The following year, the governor sends them a bond proposal to leverage that money that we just got, literally, to float bonds to keep the government afloat. I voted no for that proposal. Because I didn't think that's not what we voted for the money to do.
Senator, are we talking about the same Diageo deal?
Yes.
The same Diageo deal
Yes.
that committed 45% of the revenue
Yes.
back to Diageo.
Yes.
And 45% of at least $100 million worth of revenue.
Yes.
Okay, so basically you're saying, in hindsight, it looks good. It was looking good until the governor did what he did.
I have to correct you. One thing about me, I'm not afraid to say when you make a decision and there's some mistakes, you have to go back and look at it. And you're right, there's some things I regret about the Diageo deal. And this is where, as Senate President, I decided that going forward, we're going to have, and we have on contract a financial consultant now that advises and tests on any proposal now, including the Hovensa deal. What you see, that's what we voted on the first time we came back again. I'll share with you why. We didn't have that type of professional expertise. The governor had his, but we didn't have ours. So we all were on our own, trying to understand the rum industry, understand this thing about what you call the subsidies that all the companies compete with in the industry. And so Puerto Rico, we had no idea what they were doing. So the governor, in his own wisdom, felt, well, if we incentivize them to come here as opposed to staying in Puerto Rico or going somewhere else, we give them this so we have something as opposed to nothing, because he saw cruise and rum dwindling.
Here's my problem with the
45%.
Diageo deal, though.
Yeah.
And I've said it to everybody that's come on and I've talked about it.
Right.
That if I represented Diageo, that's exactly the kind of deal that I would get for them, because that benefits my clients.
Right.
But I don't understand that if Puerto Rico capped their cover over at 10%,
exactly.
why we had to give 45? I don't understand. I mean, what's
right.
the lure of that? I mean, how much do I need to lure you? I mean, because if I say, well, I'll give you 12, and you still don't want to come, then you may not be the right person for me. And then what ended up happening is that it kind of spiraled into, well, if you gave them 45, then I'm over here cruising around. I've been here all this time. I need to get something. Then so the money that we would have generated and seen to come into our coffers starts to dwindle down because we're giving out more than we're taking in. And so I can respect anybody that's going to say that, you know what, when I made that decision, this is what I thought. I thought it would work.
Right.
Now, I look at it, I don't think I should have done it.
And let me
I can accept that from someone rather than, I'm not saying that's what you did, but some people have done so, where they will stay on it, I was right. When you can look and see that it wasn't.
Yeah, Clint, you guys right. I'm being straight up. I mean, that's one thing I will say. And I don't run from any tough issue. Because, and this is when I tell candidates for the Senate, learn the VI code, understand the economy, what makes just money, and that's something that a lot of us didn't do back then, because you have to understand all these components thoroughly. And one thing that was kept from us, and you just reminded me with the 10% cap, that's a joke. It just says it a lot, but Puerto Rico was actually doing more. They're doing 26.
But that was after. That was after.
No, we understand that they were actually doing it quietly because they weren't really sharing with anybody what the agreements were. In fact, to this day, their governor, not their legislature, ratifies the agreements with the companies.
For 26.
So nobody really knows.
Yeah, but at the time that the deal was there, it wasn't 26.
It wasn't 26. It was 10.
At the time.
Yeah, before they left.
And then thereafter, because of what we did in the Virgin Islands,
They had to increase.
they
went up,
increased
they increased
theirs
it to
to
20.
keep who they had and lure other people to come. And that's the problem I have with when you have the Attorney General, who is supposed to represent the people of the Virgin Islands, in on these deals. Because that's something he should have known and be able to say to you, well, you know what, look, Puerto Rico's capped at 10, I'm looking at this deal, I don't recommend you do this. So that you all can then say, okay, the Attorney General who represents the people of the Virgin Islands is saying that something is not right with this specific deal. And I think that's what happened. But even though they gave more to 26%, they're still not at 45%.
True.
And so I'm trying to understand, and I will never understand how we got from 10 to 45 on a program we don't control. Tomorrow when you go, well, assuming that you win, when you go to Washington, they can decide up there and say, you know what, we're out of this cover over nonsense. And we have no money, but guess what? We have an agreement. And we got to make sure that we keep the Azure afloat. We have the money for them. And who loses out? We do, but we don't get anything back.
Of course.
And so that's one of the concerns that I have.
And it was compounded more with the leveraging of it for bonds. That's what I didn't like. I mean, a chunk of it then went, you paying a ridiculous amount of money for borrowing the money against this lump cover of money. And that made it worse to me. And so now you're looking at the governor, the governor said an unbalanced budget to the Senate, and
which is illegal.
of course, twice.
Right.
And he projected, I had this one, $26 million in lump cover money. 26 million? But that was assuming that the Senate was going to support the bond deal he submitted, which he tabled. So now I think we back up to like probably about $78 million.
But you see, Senator, no, my biggest concern is
Yes.
you have been a senator what for the past 8 years? Or
6
10?
terms.
6 terms, so 12.
We're not 12 yet.
Yeah, going on 12. So John, Senate, Governor DeYoung came in and met you as a senator.
Yes.
So you have been there his entire 8 years term.
Yes.
And for this entire 8 years, I'm not making this about John DeYoung, but I'm making it about the people.
Yes.
Governor DeYoung came in and he continued to push bill after bill. And there was no leadership from the legislature. And at this present time, you're the Senate president. And I am still concerned about the lack of leadership from the legislature. That instead of the legislature leading, the legislature is following the administration. How can we trust that we're not going to see that type of leadership in Washington, D.C.? We say to just say, let's wait and see.
Well, for
But
one,
before you answer that, right? I want you to run out of time. So take a quick break and then you answer that question when you come back.
Okay, sure, okay, sure.
Back in a moment. Good evening and welcome back to VI Voice. We have Senator Shawn-Michael Malone, who's with us tonight as he is running for delegate to Congress and for a seat to represent us in Washington, D.C. And Clint, you asked a question before we left and you were going to answer. So
Yes.
Go ahead.
okay. First, I disagree that we haven't seen leadership in this term with the governor. In fact, he is very upset with the legislature because we don't give him what he wants. We just don't make a bunch of noise about it, but we have really been holding him to the fire. And what I could say to you is that just in the spirit of cooperation, not because we have so many pressing issues here, kind of a big open fight publicly, I don't think serves the public's interest. Like selling on 2 unbalanced budgets illegally, I'm going to make a big thing about that. But I told him privately, and I wrote a letter and said, look, this is wrong. I don't think I didn't do was send it back to him to have more confusion again. But nonetheless, he vetoes so many things we do. We then support the bond deal recently. He was upset with, look, let's talk about the whole Venza agreement. People are missing something about what the Senate did for the people. That first thing that come down was a joke. And it didn't provide any upfront benefits for the people of the Virgin at the ink. I call it the drying of the ink.
At the whole Venza deal?
Yeah, but when we
provided anything on the second one?
Yes, it did. Yes, and people.
Which one?
Yes, we did. And that
was?
Yeah, which one?
okay. There are 4 or 5 things. One, we got insurance for the employees, the subcontractors, which was not being offered. We got access to the deep water ports, which was not available the first time. We got you know what that deal said? March 2014, no more gasoline to St. Croix. We got it extended till March 2019 to allow local companies to start building themselves up to be our own suppliers.
So
that's a big
those are
deal.
the 3 reasons why you voted it out?
Oh no,
He said 5.
There's we got the control of the $5 million set money.
Okay.
Which was not in our control. It was Provenza deciding with the government. Well, no. I gotta give Senator Hansen credit. She pushed hard for that, and that's why she turned on voting for it because we got.
But Senator, think about it.
Exactly.
But Senator, think about it. $5 million, a $1 billion commodity.
You understand?
$5 million. So who ended up winning?
I will say this again, like I said with Diageo. I did not support the Avenza deal, the agreement, because again, I do not believe that it represented the best interest of the people. The contract, the agreement as done.
Both times.
If I represented Hovenza, that's the kind of agreement that I would have. But I didn't. And I once again was surprised that the Attorney General would be in agreement with that. And I can understand how a Senate would sit back and say, well, the AG is saying that it's fine. You know what I'm saying? But my point was, we need to come to a point where we're not afraid to go to the courthouse to protect the people.
Right.
And Hovenza just barked and talked and complained, and a lot of what happened in the second go around, I believe that it was not, again, sufficient enough to protect the people. And what ends up happening is for $50 million, we gave up 10 times that we could have gotten into our coffers because there was no dispute that Hovenza violated the agreement, and no one can say they didn't.
I didn't.
They violated the agreement. And while it may have been a long fight, you know, when most states go after people like the tobacco legislation, that took years before. The 2 litigation, I was in high school when that started off and graduated from law school, and it was still going on.
Yes.
And so, but we can't be afraid to do it. I think what we end up happening is we allow Hovenza to call the shots as to what's going to happen. And so in both deals, I respect your decision, but in both deals, I feel that the Virgin Islands people did not get the best deal that they could have gotten out of both of those.
I'm in a full agreement with you, but here's the perspective now. Totally correct. On the face of the contract, of course not. But here's our situation. My cousin, late Governor along the way, called my mother after the signing of the third agreement, I think it was, the second one, back in the 80s, and he said to my mother that I don't like doing this because I feel like we're prostituting ourselves. At that time, Valco, these other industries were closing, and all you had was Hovenza holding St. Croix's economy together. It's a game of chess. They haven't checkmated economically because we had, and you're right, a good example as it relates to litigation is the very lawsuit that is currently pending for the contamination of the underground wells right there on the property. That's been going on for 7 years, and they have the money to keep prolonging it, and we know they're dead wrong. And so you can look and see they violate it, but look at how much money they have, the power, they have deep pockets. We have to make a decision in this economic climate. Do we take the little money we have to close the deficit to go fight this lawsuit, or as opposed to just get the hell out of here and say, go? Because it's not going to find anything. It's going to get out so we can find a better partner, hopefully, if that's the wish of. In fact, I don't think we need that, but nonetheless, if that's the property only use for that property because it's so contaminated, no way you put there besides our refinery, you know, then we should move them also, try to get some opportunity to have something moving again to replace the economic activity at the St. Croix. And that's why it was the best, not a right or wrong, but the best decision considering the situation we have in St. Croix.
You mentioned Juan Louis, and I'm glad you mentioned that because, you know, Juan Louis did what didn't happen in this one. Juan Louis told Leon Hess, well, then pack up. You got 6 months to go.
And that's it.
And that's how we got Wallet Louis Hospital. That's how we got the school and the new high school in St. Croix. Because he said to them, either you want to do these, or you have 6 months, Mr. Hess, to pack all your things them up and go about your business. And what did they do?
Yes.
They gave Juan Louis everything that they asked for. And that's how they remained here, and that's third extension went forward. We didn't get that. Well,
So think about
Governor Young is no Juan Louis.
Think about the knowledge base that Juan Louis you're coming from.
It's a different time.
Let me ask this question here, because you're talking about revenue generation and so forth. Let us say you're going in as delegate. How do you see, because I need to ask this question differently in terms of marijuana legalization, decriminalization for the territory. Because you have a lot that say that because of our status that, regardless of what we say here, it doesn't matter. The people now push forward that, we want to be legalized. What is your stance? Do you see yourself now in the, what number Congress is going to be?
Me no.
It's 114th.
14th?
Okay. Yes. As being able to push forward our agenda now to bring in this economic stimulus into the territory?
No. Let me tell you why. I think this is one of those type of initiatives that should be tested and tried someplace else before we do it here. I like Colorado's initiative. They're moving forward, and let me see how they work with the kinks. In fact, California now is taking a second look at marijuana for medicinal purposes because of and DEA is very much involved in regulating these laboratories and these dispense centers. And my nephew, I have to say, Radi Cielto, uses marijuana for his asthma. And so it's working in California, but now they're taking a second look because they believe that it's not legalized yet, then they will try to do something else. So I'm kind of gone on two issues here, but legalization of marijuana in the Virgin Islands, I'm concerned about keeping it regulated and properly done because there's different forms of cannabis and the health of the people and safety because there's so many strains of marijuana. My brother is Rastafarian, so I know about marijuana. I thought it was just look, they have all different types of strengths and I don't know. We have to get really sophisticated with this thing to protect people, and we can't even enforce some of the laws we have in the Virgin Islands. But I do support though decriminalize. I'm co-sponsoring the bill with Senator Nelson. So I gave it to him because I was running for the Senate this time. I kind of decided after the fact and said, let me give that to him because I was the primary sponsor of that legislation, as well as for medicinal purposes. I think that should be available.
So legalizing it for medicinal purposes.
Well, you would allow for medicinal use. Right, yeah.
Legalizing.
Yeah.
And everybody got asthma.
But I mean, you have other uses, but the one thing I'm hearing that's kind of disappointing to me is that everybody is saying that, we don't have the infrastructure. But isn't it the legislatures, isn't it the people that we elect, isn't it your job to put in the infrastructure, or do you expect us to come and do it? Because if you expect us to come and do it, then I think we should legalize it, and I'm sure that you'll get something done quick, fast, and in a hurry within 6 months, totally comprehensive.
I think right now at this point, like for example, California is a wonderful example.
Jamaica is going down that road as well.
They have a fairly successful medicinal marijuana program, and it's already set up that way. But the federal government is involved with it to make sure they're using it for street selling and that kind of thing. And they regulate everything that comes in. They measure the count for it. It's a ridiculously tedious process. If we can duplicate that for the Virgin Islands with our porous boards, of course, that's another thing I have concerns with. We're dropping contraband in the water. Oh no! And one of the issues I want to do as a delegate, by the way, is more border security.
That's stationed here.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Not coming to Puerto Rico 3 days a week.
Okay.
And when I was working for Donna, I was the staff that wrote. I said, Donna, after 911, we got to get on this committee. You're done voting, but we got to get on there because you represent the most porous border, southeastern entry into the United States, and they have to use common sense, and it worked.
Let me ask you this: what do you understand the job or the role of the delegate to be?
Okay, well, we could introduce legislation in committee, we could vote in committee, and of course pass to introduce legislation, and of course to serve also double time as a lobbyist. You have to be. You have to do a lot of lobbying, and what's great, I was saying that today at our program, unlike states, we have access to both federal and executive programs because of our status as a territory, because the Interior Department is in total control of all of the territories. So if I need some money and I can't get it through the crazy Republican Congress, I go into my Interior Secretary, who's a Democrat, of course, the president. Right now we have that opportunity, and say, right now there's $80 million that's proposed just for the territories. And of course, if we don't have our act together, and if a delegate I want to work very close with the governor and the Senate, and the Senate has never been involved very intimately with the delegate's office and the governor in terms of federal policy. We need to be. And since as a former senator, I have a relationship with these guys, so look, we got to huddle and put the plans together so that when the money is released, or available, Northern Mariana and Guam don't beat us to it, because they're ready to move to access their money. But UVI need a sports and fitness center in St. Croix. Melvin Evans said we need major renovation.
But you have the US,
and all of that.
we have the USCDA that has grants
We need a new
get
high
for
school
that.
in St. Croix. It's legislation of Michael Phelan passed. We have the funding. That can be funded with that kind of money. New hospitals and so on.
Right. Now, let's get to the big elephant.
Yes.
Okay? This RT Park issue.
Yes.
Where it's been coined the Malone Amendment.
Lovely.
Or whoever coined it, right? Okay.
You know who coined it?
No, I don't know. And so, we've had Ms. Plaskett on the show.
Yes.
And she's given her position.
Yes.
We had Mr. Hansen on the show. And now you're on the show.
Yes.
And so I want to know
The bad guy.
your position as to how we got to this amendment.
Yes.
And why we got this amendment, so that people can have a full picture.
Yes.
Before they go out to vote.
And I love this opportunity because I have never seen propaganda like this in my life. One thing about Senator Malone, I'm very frank. I don't have no reason to hide or do things as you like to say we're doing. What was going on with the RT Park that you all really need to understand is that August 2013, the governor had the Attorney General send an opinion saying to all the companies at the time that they were ineligible to be at the park. They were illegally placed there. As you know, as a good lawyer, Attorney General's opinion stands until a court overturns that opinion. Contracts have been let already. I said, Malone, don't give two crap about tax benefit for companies. That's not the issue here. We have a struggling economy. We're trying to attract investment to the territory. How does it look that you're going to breach a contract? The same reason the governor went to DC and said, well, you can't reverse the ADC program. That's on the record, which I could provide and have it on the radio itself. And even the Rumwa issue, you can't come in midstream and change a contract and then create this bad impression and reputation for the territory.
Senator, stop for a minute.
No, I can't stop because I have to finish.
Because you
Wait,
said,
let him
no,
finish
he
his-
said,
yeah, but
but
let
he
him-
said they cannot breach a contract.
Right.
I'm a government employee, you breach my contract.
Yes.
What nonsense you talking?
Right.
But I went to court and the court ruled against it.
Well, it ain't done yet. He ain't finished ruling yet.
Go ahead, continue.
But let's
Oh, yeah,
go.
no,
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, in appeal, I think he only ruled on two parts.
Okay.
He has another part that I think he's only going to rule on because he has to rule in the public employee's favor, and so it's just okay.
But
Okay.
everybody's contract is important, with the exception of government employees and the hardworking men and women
Right.
of this community. So I'm going to let you go. Continue, son.
Okay, I see your perspective you're coming from there. And so that is what the essence of the amendment was, to clarify what Act 6502 stated back in 2002. And so we didn't want to send the wrong message and to lose the opportunity to attract more investment, because the world would have gotten out that this is not a good place to do business, and because we changed the game in the middle, the rules in the middle of the game. That was really the essence of it. And this is another thing people need to know about the amendment. If you read the amendment, when you read the amendment, there's nothing that says anything about giving anybody tax breaks at all. It can't. It just doesn't do that. And the legislature cannot give a company tax breaks. You just can't.
No, but doesn't it allow for the board of the RT Park to give tax breaks?
What it does,
I'm right, EDC-like benefits, I'm sorry.
well, EDC and Temple are the same thing. What you do is the legislature
No, they got their
creates.
own
That
boards.
is-
No, what I'm asking, doesn't it give the RT Park board the authority to give EDC-like benefits
No,
to
the,
these companies?
the amendment doesn't do that. They already had that authority
Right.
in Act 6502.
Okay, so why wouldn't that be something that you could correct?
There
So
you
that
go.
only the EDC are the ones that can give those things and not an RT
Since
Park
they're
board.
already there.
And then, like
that does
boy,
that.
that's exactly what we asked the governor. Why didn't he just simply send on an amendment to Act 6502 as opposed to going this? Trust me, it was very clandestine. It was quiet for months. I even said to them, so you all need to talk to the governor. When you all work it out, send us the legislation, we will support it. Alex Moorhead, he testified on the record at that 8-hour hearing, sent the governor 3 drafts of an amendment. He never even responded to the board chairman.
So then why did you all do it?
Yeah.
Well, what we think we did. That's
Okay.
that's
And
exactly what the
did
amendment
you
is.
include in there that the EDC is the only place that can give out those benefits?
Oh, well, no.
Party.
The amendment that they submitted was just to make sure that the Attorney General, we said that they were wrong about them not being knowledge-based companies. Then this is the kicker here. The memorandum of understanding that was signed in 2008 between the governor, the university, and the EDA, right? All of them is exactly the Malone amendment, except the part about the consultants. And I have to admit, it does appear like, oh God, you're giving a consultant tax benefits. What that was done to do was to close the loophole. Okay, there's some lawyers here, and I mentioned it at a hearing, who do a lot of shady stuff with the law. A company named 183 Media, and I'm saying publicly now, is an internet company out of San Diego, California. I ain't calling the lawyer's name. They brought them in, and because they didn't want them in the tech, because you have to pay more to get a tech park. This lawyer is trying to represent them and saying, look, let's change your name to a consulting company, an internet consulting company, so that you can qualify for EDC benefits, which gives tax benefits to consultants. And that was wrong. So that was the intent of doing that. We could pass it, to let's take it out anyway. Just so
So
you don't.
what is currently prohibiting the legislature from making the amendment to say that only the EDC can give those benefits and no longer RT Park can you do so?
The answer to that question is nothing. In fact, we were going to, all of us agree that we have to take a second look at all of the tax benefit programs, right? And this is my wish, and I said this publicly a number of times. Time magazine did an excellent report on Ireland, the worst economy in the world back in the late 80s. And what they did, our EDC program is fashioned off of their law, you know. But they didn't have a corporate welfare program. It was a specific period of time. And guess what? The tech park is a specific period of time. It's only for 30 years. That's granted, you know. EDC is forever and ever. And the tech park, the people of the Virgin Islands has equity in the companies at the tech park here in St. Croix, in the Virgin Islands, but not the EDC program. So what Ireland did is say, okay, Microsoft is an excellent example. They came in, they gave them some tax benefit, like almost zero. But what they did, they were required to reinvest the money into education. That's what they did. So right now, Ireland has one of the most skilled and trained labor forces in the world. That's why Microsoft makes their chips with their computers. They no longer EDC benefits. They don't pay full taxes in Ireland. It should be done for that reason, and not to have to renewing. That's what I would like to see in a comprehensive review and policy changing that. Hopefully the 31st legislature will tackle this, because it's not going to be a quick time to develop, and the contracts are already in place. You got to wait till, and so by a time specific, when the revision comes to, then at that point, no more.
I saw the 8-hour hearing, and it was very informative. But what I would say with my problem with how the amendment was done is I'm always very leery about anything that happens without public debate on it. And I felt that while I know time was crunched, I think that had you had that hearing before, then the confusion of what happened over there would have been avoided. And I just feel that would have been a bit more transparent.
He's correct.
But we're running out of time. I know the time goes by like that, and I would like for you to let everybody know where we can find you if they have more questions for you. Because in a month, less than a month actually, is when we're going to have our primary. Where they can have more information about you.
Certainly, and thank you so much again, Emile, Clint, Roy, Boyd, McFarlane, and of course Yoki. I'm on my website is Shawn-MichaelMalone.com, Malone for Congress Facebook page, or Shawn-Michael Malone Facebook page, 777 NPAC. I'm very accessible. My number's in the phone book. People say you're so crazy to say that, but there's a law. I have to have my number published in the phone book. So you can always call me. I'm very accessible and be happy to answer any questions you have about my platform, my intentions to represent you in Washington, D.C.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Go ahead. You want to say something?
No, I really appreciate the opportunity.
And I thank you for coming on. And we'll see what happens come August 2nd.
Yes.
Ordinarily, I would say to the persons who are in the primaries, whoever wins, will have you come back and be with the other person. Now, I think there's a Republican person. So
Vincent Bennett.
Yeah, but I think I'm confident in saying if you win the primary, then you're going to be the delegate. And so you may not need to come back.
Welcome back anyway.
Well, you could come back. I mean, you can come back and talk about your win.
No, we won't do. I want to really have a very specific agenda and timely too.
Okay, we
Okay,
can do
no
that.
problem.
We can do
Yes.
that. Also, we want to say a very special happy birthday to our CEO, Narcisse Springer. Today is her birthday. She's 419 years old. Today is her birthday, and we just want to wish her a very happy birthday and Godspeed. That's why you see all these cupcakes up here, because it is in fact her birthday, and we love her. We're happy that she's here with us. But we also want to make sure that every time we have a show like this, that it is informative to you and that you understand the issues, because understanding the issues is what allows you to make informed decisions. And when we make informed decisions, then we get a better representation of who we are and a better representation of understanding what it is that we need to do to change the trajectory of where we are going. The 2014 election is a very serious and critical election, and I know that we say that all the time, but I really feel that this time it really is, and we have to make sound decisions. So whatever your decision may be, come August 2nd and come November 4th, make sure it's an informed decision, and we are here to help you to do that. So make sure that your voice is heard, because it needs to be. Good night, everybody.